Hey folks, welcome back to Black Girl's Guide to True Crime. I'm Lauren, I'm your host for today. I'm also your host for tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next, because this is your favorite podcast and I'm your favorite host. I have dubbed myself your content queen. With that said, please hit the follow button for this show on whatever site you listen to your podcast so that you don't have to find the new episodes, they just find you. You see how that works? Additionally, all of our information is in the episode description. You can find the link to our store and the link to stay connected. I got some design requests for more merch, so I just want to let y'all know I'm in the lab cooking right now. So we will roll out with that soon. Our team can always be reached by email at info@blackgirlstruecrime.com. I have a fan mail text button now, so you can find that in the bio of each episode, and that text comes directly to our team. This is the People's Podcast, so I really do want to hear from y'all. In my podcast analytics, I'm seeing some loyal listeners, so if you are in or around Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Baltimore, Maryland, Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Oakville, Connecticut, Milton, Ontario, St. Louis, Missouri, Buffalo, New York, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Santa Barbara, California, San Bernardino, California, or Higganum, Connecticut, hit me up. Let me know you're not a bot and tell me how you came across this show, because I don't know y'all, but it would be nice to know my community. So text and introduce yourself and tell me how you found us. Speaking of the People's Podcast, today's episode is special because I found out I have some 6-year-old stans. Yes, you heard me correctly. So today's episode is going to be an episode for everyone, including kids of all ages. I'm going to be a little lighter with the language and tone, but I do recommend, if you are the thrill-seeking true crime type, that you read more into this story because it does have an eerie energy depending on how deep you look into it. But today, like I said, just a lighter vibe. We're reviewing a non-violent crime today, but a crime still occurred, so that's a disclaimer. Parents, you know your children. Don't run down on me because I said this is a kids episode and you let your little one listen unsupervised. And now they did something bad, because let's keep it a buck. If your child does something bad after listening to this episode, they was already bad. It wasn't me, but I don't judge. Because the kids are joining us today, I have included some visual guides to make it more interactive. You'll find the Google Doc link in the episode description. I'm going to pause here to give you a chance to open that link so you or the kids can follow along with the story. I feel it's best printed out with a pen so you can follow along, but opening on a separate device or even the device you're listening on works too. So let's just pause here, and when you're situated with the visuals, you can hit play again. Today, we're going to be talking about the art heist at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts. What you're looking at is a map of the museum, and we're going to follow these guys' steps through the building as we tell the story. The map you're looking at is divided into 3 parts, and this is what we call a floor plan. This means that you are looking down at the building as if you were in an airplane. Each section represents a different floor of the museum. The 3rd floor is at the top. The 2nd floor is in the middle, and the 1st floor is at the bottom of the page. This happens on March 18th, 1990 on St. Patrick's Day. This is a holiday, especially in Boston, so everybody was out celebrating. 2 Boston police officers rang the bell to the Gardner Museum after hours to investigate a call they received for a disturbance. The 2 security guards that were working that night broke protocol and let them in because they were police officers. When the police got into the building, they told the security guards the real reason they were there. They wanted to take the art that didn't belong to them. So they were not even real police officers. And although they weren't mean to the guards that were working that night, the bad guys decided to hide them in the basement area of the museum, where they couldn't call the real police to stop them from stealing the art. The bad guys waited for a bit to make sure the guards didn't alert anyone that they were there. This was back in 1990, so people weren't carrying iPhones or devices where they could quickly call for help or take pictures and record. The only option the guards had to notify anyone that something was going on was a button behind the security desk, but they were unable to push it before they were taken to the basement. Speaking of old technology, the security information that they had at that time was called a dot matrix. The dot matrix is like an old typewriter. It records steps that people take in each room of the museum and is triggered by an alarm. So this is how we came to know the path the bad guys took through the museum. I want you to find the arrow on the first floor in the bottom left-hand corner of the page. Above the point of the arrow, you'll see 5 lines in a row next to a handicap sign. I want you to circle those lines because this is our entry point. Now, from the circle you just made, I want you to draw a straight line up through the rear hall up to the second floor until you get to the Dutch room highlighted in purple. Now, draw 2 X's in the Dutch room. Those are 2 bad guys, and the lines you circled are stairs. What we know based on the dot matrix is that the guys went straight to the Dutch room with intention when they entered the museum. It suggested that they knew exactly what they were looking for. We also know they took 6 pieces from this room, including 3 paintings by an artist named Rembrandt, and there were multiple thefts of this artist's work in other museums in the Boston area. This also baffled investigators because there were works of higher value in the museum that the bad guys essentially overlooked. After a bit of time, one of the bad guys leaves the Dutch room and heads to the short gallery. So now I want you to trace the red dotted line to the short gallery highlighted in green and draw an X in the short gallery. Again, the thief collected 6 pieces, including an eagle finial that they thought was gold but was gilded bronze. Gilded means it's gold on the outside, but not real gold on the inside. Now, trace the yellow dotted line back to the Dutch room. The bad guys finished up here, spending a whopping 81 minutes total in the museum. This is over an hour, my friends. Normally, when people are committing crimes, they're trying to be as quick and quiet as they can be, but these guys took their time. They cut the works out of their frames and shattered the glass on the marble floor, so they weren't very careful either. After they finished, they checked to make sure the museum's security guards were still hidden and then exited the museum the same way they entered, so back down the line you drew to the stairs and out the door. And the dot matrix showed that the exit door opened twice 5 minutes apart. So they either left at 2 separate times or made 2 trips because of the amount of things they had taken. Now, there is an area on our map that we haven't discussed, and it is highlighted in blue. I want you to find it on your map and put your finger on it, and you can even draw a question mark here. So this is the blue room. There was 1 painting taken from this room. However, the dot matrix didn't give us any information on when or how. Museum administration was skeptical that this painting was taken during the robbery because the sensor wasn't triggered. They tried several times to get into the room without triggering the alarm to make sure it wasn't malfunctioning, which led them to believe it was a separate incident, but they could never prove it. The guards weren't found until almost 5 hours later when the morning guard arrived for his shift. He became alerted that something was wrong when no one buzzed him in that morning. He immediately called the security director, and they called police when they got inside and realized no one was seated at the security desk. Remember, the night guards were still hidden in the basement, and the investigation into who could have done this began. Y'all, this is still an active investigation today in 2025. These works of art have never been recovered, and the identities of the guys who took the art is still unknown. There are many theories on who did this and where the paintings went. It was speculated that the artwork traveled to states like Connecticut and Pennsylvania before eventually ending up overseas. These paintings were stolen for reasons anywhere from mob ties to extreme art collectors. A lot of art thefts at that time involved criminals using stolen art as leverage to get less jail time for other crimes. Another widely speculated theory is that it was an inside job, specifically linked to one of the night guards who was working that night and was hidden in the basement. Now, this was never proven, and he has always denied involvement, but he did a lot of suspicious things that night and in the time leading up to the incident, like hosting parties after hours in the museum with his friends, which wasn't allowed. Also, the last recording from the Blue Room was his security round through the gallery shortly before the bad guys arrived, so this left investigators skeptical of his story. These paintings are worth upward of $500 million. So I want you to scroll to the next page or turn to the next page if you have it printed out. After the map, These are the stolen works from the museum. The first photo that you're looking at was painted by Rembrandt. It's called Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee. If you look closely at the center of the portrait, you'll see a man in a blue shirt who looks like he's looking directly at you. This is Rembrandt himself, and this was a particularly invaluable loss to the museum because this was Rembrandt's only painted seascape. If you keep going to the next page, you'll see other works that were stolen from the Dutch room, one painted by Rembrandt and another painted by an artist named Johannes Vermeer, which is the most expensive work, valued at $200 million, and the empty frames that were left hanging on the walls of the museum. If you continue on to page 5, you'll see a self-sketch portrait of Rembrandt, and right below, also the frame it was stolen from still hanging on the wall. Keep going to page 6, and you'll see all the works taken from the short gallery. Many of these were by an artist named Edgar Degas from France. You'll also see the gilded finial that was on top of the flag. It looks like an eagle. And more drawings by Degas that Isabella Gardner purchased directly from his estate. Then at the bottom, the last photo you'll see is the Chez Tortoni by Manet, also a French artist that was taken from the Blue Room where no alarms were triggered. Ironically enough, this photo actually hung under a photo of the artist's mother, and the frame was left where the security director sits. Was this a coincidence, or was someone sending a message? We don't know. Parents, I would recommend after this episode, you review the artwork more comprehensively with your little ones if they're listening. I gave a brief summary, but I have included another link in the episode description that will give you more information on each work, like what art medium was used and the provenance. Kids, provenance is tracing the artwork back to where it came from. And I really want y'all to study these pieces and be able to recognize them because, parents, hear me out. Imagine your child goes on a play date and somebody's parents have any of these stolen works hidden in the basement and the kids come across it. I want y'all to keep it close to the chest and go home and tell your parents because there is a $10 million reward and Auntie Betty don't want none of her children to fumble the bag. As a matter of fact, email me at info@blackgirlstruecrime.com. Unfortunately, because of this crime, visitors like you and me are unable to enjoy these works, but hopefully one day that changes and they are recovered. In the meantime, you can still visit the museum and see the empty frames. I'm sure a lot of people are attracted to the museum for that reason, because the theft is a story within itself and part of the museum history. That's really why I visited, but outside of that, many other beautiful things and pieces to see there. But anyways, that's all for today, folks. Until next time.